It's Matt. Welcome to the video. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery and I'm your mind and movement mentor here to help you. So a bit of a personal recovery update this week. Last week I went into the Gordon Moody problem gambling retreat and counselling service, which was 4 days, 3 nights residential. And it was actually the second time I'd done it, because the way it's designed, you do the 4 days, 3 nights, and then 6 weeks later or 5 weeks later, you do another 4 days and 3 nights. So last week was the second stint of that. So I had been in before in this phase, but that's the first time I've ever done anything kind of rehabilitation focused for my gambling. And it was very good. It was very powerful. I want to share a couple of takeaways. I think firstly, just being in that kind of environment and seeing that places like this exist just goes to show how sadly rife gambling addiction is, the problems that it causes. And as I've said in this channel a number of times before, it seems like that trajectory is just totally heading in the wrong direction. I think there's certain things you can learn, like intellectually, like from a book, or people can tell you. And I think there's certain things that you need to kind of learn almost like viscerally through being part of it. And I feel that that was a real big component of it. There was a lot of people in there that various different stories, different stages of recovery, but lots of distress, lots of problems to face when they came out of it. And that was very powerful, very, very powerful for me. A number of months into my recovery now, and it's very, very easy to lose sight of that. One thing that we did, which was incredibly powerful, was to write a letter to addiction. And then we went in the garden and burnt it after as a way of kind of letting go. And a lot came up for this for me. It really was quite emotional. I think in a number of ways, you develop a camaraderie with the group of the other guys that were there. And this is you kind of, reading that out loud to them, everyone present, on the last day when you've got kind of a real good bond between the group as it was. But I think it's easy to forget certain things. I think the brain's almost got like a self-defense, kind of like a preservation mechanism where day to day you just don't want to ruminate on that kind of, it won't let you stew and fester on your sort of your deepest, darkest gambling moments, kind of, the problems it's caused you over various stages of your life. And we had about sort of 30-40 minutes in isolation to kind of reflect on that and write down. And yeah, for me, that was incredibly powerful exercise. And like I said, we then went into the garden later to burn it. And, like I said, as a way of sort of letting go and kind of sort of diminishing the addiction, if you will, putting some closure towards it. I think a few other things that were very, very valuable were, I'm always, and I've done a fair amount of this myself, interested in how the brain works, how things like the neural pathways get wired, how habits formed, how compulsions and addictions can almost like take over the brain and body. So learning more about the brain in addition to kind of what I already knew of that was very valuable. But we also did another exercise which was kind of like the cycle of gambling and how it starts with urges, and then urges move to triggers, and then that potentially moves to action, and kind of the cycle round, and really kind of sitting with the headspaces or the mindset that you're in at each phase, and really kind of breaking that down was incredibly powerful. I think I will look at things differently in that regard. I've always said relapse is a combination of things happening simultaneously. It's very rare that someone is just entrenched in recovery and then just one day something doesn't go their way, they go and act. It can be that way, I know for myself, it's more of kind of like a slower accumulation of, I don't watch the signs that are bubbling up. I don't address the urges. I try and kind of, my brain maybe pushes them off as irrelevant, or I don't give them credit, or I think, okay, they're there, but I still haven't gambled, so there's no problem that they're there. And then it escalates to a trigger, and then I do the same thing again. And next thing you know, I'm kind of halfway around the wheel, which is right on the cusp of placing a bet and relapsing, and I don't really even know I'm there. I've not acknowledged the kind of the first cycle, part of the cycle. And you know, for me, that was, again, it was really important to think on that, and to say, to sit with the emotions of that, especially in a group environment of everyone else being incredibly open and honest and doing the same thing. And probably another thing, arguably the most important, that came out of it for me was how gambling addiction is, we know it's insidious, we know it's cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful, and that kind of thing, but how it's also really tied to your self-worth, self-esteem, and how, if there's some inner work that's not been done in that regard, just how the addiction can really thrive off of that. I think something that I was somewhat aware of, but now I'm substantially more aware of, is, I don't want to say glass half empty like mindset, because I see myself as quite a jovial, optimistic person, but I do have a real inner critic, and I do have a real success barrier type mindset, like I'm not sure I can do this. I have, you know, largely a negative self-image, and the way gambling comes to rescue you as an escape from that noise in your mind, I think I kind of understood that, but I certainly didn't understand that to the level that I do now. You know, the counsellors would ask us, and therapists would ask us questions like, why do we matter? You know, who do we matter to? And things like that, and you know, really kind of deeper work on self-esteem and self-worth, and the way that they kind of went to the root of that just showed that that was something that's really considered quite important, and it was something that really everyone in our group had, to a large extent, a commonality there. And I suppose they've seen that as such a consistency across the board, which is why that's just addressed. I think it can be easy to just think that as yourself, as you know, I'm diagnosed with ADHD, so I think of myself as a bit of a sort of a dopamine seeking stimulation junkie that just doesn't like the boring day to day and doesn't like doing the mundane tasks and just wants to go and have a bet because it makes things more exciting and more thrilling, and I'm not necessarily happy at my baseline. And a lot of that is not true, to use bad grammar, but there is also a lot of deeper other things at play. And I think sometimes doing the inner work in that regard is just incredibly powerful. I think definitely a experience I won't forget. And I would encourage anyone that does watch the channel that is, maybe you've been sent one of these videos by someone else and has identified you as someone that maybe does struggle with gambling. There is a lot of free help out there if you're struggling with money, with finances. You know, there are some very good free resources available, and Gordon Moody is definitely one of them. So if you want to know any more about this, you're welcome to send me a direct message, or you know, comment below. I respond to all the comments. And please, if you enjoy this content and you're interested in these kind of topics, help me reach more people. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about. I make these videos for like a younger version of myself who would have liked to have heard this and certainly would have enhanced their recovery journey. And by liking, subscribing, etc., this helps me reach more people. So thanks so much for watching once again, and I will see you in the next video very soon.